Hey guys, excuse me and my really gooberish $9 blue light glasses from Amazon, but I have been having raging headaches since we started back to school and finally realized it was a blasted computer. So here we go. I want to go over with you today some diction notes. We've been talking about diction and word choice and how it leads to tone, and you've looked at some poems, but now we need to get a little bit more advanced in our study of diction. And we need to have some actual questions that we can ask ourselves if asked to do a diction analysis. So if you look, I've got here some diction notes for you and a little cute quotation from Mark Twain about diction, and then a couple of things that I want to go over with you about diction. So we've learned that diction is word choice and that word choice has a powerful effect on the overall tone of a work and the mood it creates. The words that you choose matter. The words that other authors choose matter. The reason that I am going to be on you guys about words like things and stuff are because they're not good words. You're giving away words and you're choosing weak words when you could choose much more specific and more powerful words. So we're trying to get better at using the best basic tools that we can. So that diction matters. All right. An analysis of diction. So if I ask you, hey, you need to analyze the diction of this piece, means that we are basically going to break down how a writer uses words in order to accomplish purpose. Notice that word purpose. We always are going back to our rhetorical purpose. An author is writing for a purpose. They choose tools to build together their argument, and diction is one of those tools. So we're always wanting to think, why did these diction choices, or how did these diction choices affect their purpose or help them accomplish their purpose? Because diction is something that helps them accomplish their purpose, we consider it to be a rhetorical strategy. And all that means is an argument strategy, a strategy that an author uses in order to argue. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 4 specific questions that you can ask yourself about diction. Now, to start, you do not have to ask yourself all of these questions. Okay? Learn a few of them and get good at asking yourself a few of them, because on the AP test, you are never going to analyze just for diction. Diction will be one possible strategy that you look at, but you need some things to ask yourself about diction. So the first thing that you can ask yourself that's really easy is it formal or is it informal? Right? And you can look at certain words that help you decide if it's formal or informal. And once you've decided if it's formal or informal, you need to think a little bit about the rhetorical situation. Who's writing, who they're writing to, why they're writing, what the exigence is, and think, why would informal or formal language be a good, solid choice for accomplishing the purpose? It could be because of the audience. It could be a way to establish credibility as a speaker. Sometimes formal language helps build a speaker's ethos. So you want to kind of ask yourself these questions. All right, the next thing that you're going to want to ask, number 2, is, are there any special kinds of diction? And I've got some words listed here. Some of them are familiar to you and some of them aren't, but these are some of the things that you could write about in an analysis of diction that would make you sound like you knew what you were talking about. So you might notice colloquial language. Right here we have colloquial words. That just means conversational. Hey guys is colloquial, right? It's not formal. It's conversational. And if an entire speech is conversational, then that probably says something about audience and purpose. They're probably doing that for a purpose, right? You want to think about that. Dialect. Dialect is when you write like people talk. So if I use the word y'all, that would be dialect. If I use the word ain't, that would be dialect. Anything that you do where you try to capture in writing or in speaking the way people talk is dialect. And so if you notice that, you want to ask why. Why did they choose to write that? Then the next thing that you can do is slang. And I'm about to be interrupted. My family's about to walk in, so I'm going to tell them what I'm doing here in a second. But the next thing that so I'm recording a video, so tell them, and you guys just be quiet as you come in, okay? So the next thing that we have is slang, and you know what slang is. You see slang all the time. LOL is slang. All of the text language stuff is slang. So you want to, if you notice that they're using slang in their speech, well, there must be a purpose behind that. The next one that you might notice is jargon. And jargon is when you use a kind of language that is related to the way a group of people talk. So, for instance, teachers, when we're all together, we have all of these acronyms that we use and all of this special testing language that we use, and people who aren't teachers think we sound crazy. If you play a sport, there's probably jargon for your sport, words for equipment and words for plays and words for things like that, that people inside your sport understand, but people outside of it don't. Doctors have jargon, attorneys have jargon, the military has jargon. So all jargon is specialized language that a group uses. So if there's a speech full of jargon, you're going to want to ask yourself, does that help accomplish the purpose? Why would they choose to use it? They're choosing it for a purpose. Next, we have expletives, your good old bad words. And so if you notice there are bad words in a text, they are almost always there for some sort of purpose. Okay, that purpose could be to establish a character. That purpose could be to be realistic. That purpose could be for emphasis to a certain point that they really want to express. But usually bad words don't happen in a vacuum, and they aren't just thrown around for no reason. Maybe they are in our hallways, but they're not supposed to be in writing. So what you want to ask is, if any of these special kinds of diction exist, why and how do they help the author or the speaker accomplish their purpose? All right, the third thing that you want to ask yourself are there any words that seem to fall into overall special or purposeful patterns? Now, all authors are going to use some of these things sometimes. You only want to note it if it's used so much that it feels like they did it on purpose. So if you notice, if you look at monosyllabic and polysyllabic words, if you notice that the writer wrote in all very, very small words, okay, that was probably a choice they made. And so you want to question and look at the audience and think about the rhetorical situation and think, why would they choose such small words? If you notice lots of polysyllabic words, lots of those sort of $1,000,000 words, you want to ask yourself, why is the author choosing to use all these big words? What is the advantage here? How does that help them accomplish their purpose? The same thing with denotative and connotative words. Remember, denotative is dictionary definition. Connotative is emotional meaning. And so if you have a speech full of emotional charged words like freedom and slavery, you want to ask yourself what the author is doing. And they're probably trying to appeal to your pathos, right? To your emotions. And that is, of course, used to accomplish purpose. If you notice that instead they're using words that don't have a lot of feelings, well, then maybe they're trying to go for logos and they're trying to appeal more to logic and leave emotions out of things. So it's only worth noting if you notice that they're really using a lot of denotative or a lot of connotative words. The same thing for cacophonous words and euphemous words. Cacophonous words are words that have a lot of harsh K and T sorts of sounds, and they sound really harsh, whereas euphemous words use M's and N's and S's and have softer sounds. All speakers are going to use certain kinds of words randomly. But if it looks like a whole paragraph is full of really harsh words, there may be a reason for that. And it might be worth noting in an analysis of diction. The same thing with abstract and concrete words. If you don't notice a lot of highly symbolic words, abstract words like justice, then maybe the diction is all concrete and maybe they are trying to go for a less emotional and more logical piece of writing. So once again, I would never expect on a diction analysis for you to comment on every one of these many things we've just talked about. You would never need to tell me, for instance, there is no jargon in this writing. It's only worth noting if it is there. You would never need to tell me there are no connotative words in this writing. Okay. Instead, you would just tell me the words are mostly denotative. Tell me what's there, not what's not there. And never would you need to comment on every single one of these things because they're not all going to be relevant to every piece. I'm just trying to give you sort of a toolbox of diction terms that you can pull out and use when you're analyzing writing or when you're doing your own writing. The final thing that you want to ask yourself, and this is true of almost every aspect of writing, is just, are there any shifts? Do you have any shifts or changes in the diction of a text, right? Is it really formal and then all of a sudden the last paragraph is really informal? Have you noticed it to be very denotative, but in the last paragraph it gets extremely connotative? Or maybe all of a sudden it starts out in the first paragraph with a lot of jargon, but then you notice it gets a lot more colloquial and conversational. Those shifts may be purposeful. Those shifts may be for emphasis. Those shifts may be to draw attention to a certain part of the argument. But this is the kind of question you want to ask yourself. If you notice a shift, and you feel that it's there and noticeable, then it's worth noting. You do not need to tell me if there are no sudden shifts. Never analyze diction and say, there are no shifts in this text. Okay, fine. If there's no shifts, don't write about it at all. Only write about it if it's there. So these are some basic diction terms that can help you with an analysis of diction, which is, of course, what you're about to do. You're going to be looking back at the Federalist paper and the Brutus paper that you read on Wednesday, and you're going to be talking a little bit about diction in one of those. So I'm going to post these notes in the assignment, and I'm also going to post these notes in a note section of the classroom for you to have. And good luck. If you need any help with the assignment, feel free to email me. Thanks so much, guys.